Some motorcycles are not just a machine. Some are the soul of an era, the voice of a generation, the pride of a nation. Not because someone decided they should be, but because what they represent, what they stood for, what they made possible, makes it impossible to forget them. Some machines leave a mark on history, not just on the road. They become part of the culture, part of the conversation, part of the
Look at
way
this
people
timing cover, it's
remember a
completely
time
seized.
and
And
a
the frame
place
might be
and a
cracked right here
feeling.
by the seat mount.
This is a
We'll need to strip it down
1960
completely.
BSA Gold Star DBD34, the greatest legend in British motorcycle history. The machine where cafe racer culture was born. The machine that a generation of young riders built their dreams around. The machine that made the impossible feel ordinary. And it stood here, abandoned, hidden from the world, taken from the road it was built for, taken from the wind it was made to cut through, silenced by time, silenced by neglect, silenced by someone who walked away and never came back. Until today. At the edge of town, there's a junkyard that nobody goes to anymore. Moss-covered gates, broken fences. For years, forgotten machines slowly merging with the earth, disappearing into the ground one season at a time.
Almost down.
The kind of place where time has stopped, where stories were
Shift the
left
weight back
unfinished,
slowly.
where things were brought when the people who cared for them were no longer around to care, where machines that once meant everything to someone ended up meaning nothing to anyone. We walked slowly through the junkyard. Crushed cars, bent motorcycles, engines that hadn't turned in decades. Everything here has a story that ended too soon, a story that nobody finished, a story that nobody came back for, a story that was simply left behind. And then, there, half buried in rust, hidden among scrap metal and overgrown weeds, pressed down under the weight of forgotten years, a silhouette that stopped us completely. We didn't move. We didn't speak. We just looked. Because sometimes you see something and you know immediately. Before you can explain it, before you can put it into words, you just know. A glint of a tank, an engine cast from bright aluminum, and that distinctive, swept-back exhaust pipe. There is only one motorcycle in history with an exhaust pipe like that. Only one machine that carries that shape, that stance, that presence. For someone who knows, this sight is not just a motorcycle. This is a symbol. This is a piece of a world that most people have only read about. This was a 1960 BSA Gold Star DBD34. The holy grail of British cafe racer culture. Of the 15,000 gold stars ever made, only 5,100 were DBD34s. 5,100 in the entire world, across all the decades, across all the countries they were sent to, across all the races they were entered in. And one of them was lying right here, for years, quietly, patiently, in a junkyard at the edge of town, where nobody goes anymore, waiting for someone who would recognize it, who would see past the rust, past the silence, past the decades of neglect, and understand what was underneath. We recognized it. We took it, brushed the rust away with our hands. The frame was intact. The engine cases were solid. The crankshaft turned. Slowly, with resistance, but it turned. And in that moment, everything became clear. This machine hadn't died. It was alive. It had just been abandoned. We made a call. We agreed on a price. And on that morning, one of the most iconic machines in British motorcycle history found someone to fight for it again. Someone who understood what it was. Someone who understood what it deserved. Someone who wasn't going to walk away. Getting it
The
out
worker
was
carefully
not
aligns the
easy.
gudgeon pin.
It hadn't
After
moved in
applying fresh oil,
decades.
the ring
Every
compressor is used to
component
guide the
felt
piston
locked in
into the
place,
freshly honed
held
cylinder bore.
down by time, rust, and the weight of forgotten years. The wheels had fused to the ground. The tires had cracked and crumbled into themselves. Every bolt, every connection, every surface, frozen in place beneath years of neglect, seized by rust, held fast by time. A machine like this does not forgive carelessness. It does not reward impatience. It asks for something in return: attention, respect, time. We worked slowly, carefully, without a rush, taking our time with every section, lifting each section by hand, making sure nothing cracked, nothing broke. Every movement deliberate, every step considered, every decision made with care. We loaded it onto the flatbed, secured it with soft ties, wrapped the most fragile parts, took our time, because this was not just a motorcycle on a truck. This was history on a truck. This was 1960 on a truck. This was Brooklands and the Isle of Man and the streets of 1960s Britain, all sitting on the back of a flatbed, heading somewhere it could breathe again. And as the sun rose that morning, as the light began to fall across the junkyard, across rows of forgotten machines, across everything that had been left behind, the 1960 BSA Gold Star DBD34 left the place where it had been abandoned. It was taking its first journey in a very long time. Not to an auction house, not to a showroom, not to a glass case in a museum, to a workshop, to a pair of hands that understood exactly what it deserved, that understood exactly what it was capable of, that understood exactly what it meant. But the real journey was only just beginning. When it arrived at the restoration workshop, we saw the damage clearly for the first time, under proper light, without the shadows of the junkyard. The fuel tank had corroded from the inside. The carburetor was completely blocked. The electrical system had nearly vanished entirely.
I'll deliver it
The
myself.
wiring crumbled between our fingers like old glass. The chrome surfaces, almost nothing remained. But the engine block was intact. The frame was solid. The crankcases were whole. That was enough, because this machine was not built to give up. The 1960 BSA Gold Star DBD34 was one of the most successful racing motorcycles ever built, and you could feel that even standing in front of it in the workshop. The story begins in 1937 on a race circuit, the legendary Brooklands circuit in England. Retired racer Wal Handley climbed aboard a factory-prepared BSA Empire Star that day, and with an average speed of 102 miles per hour and a fastest lap of 107 miles per hour, he circled the track. At Brooklands, riders who lapped at over 100 miles per hour were traditionally awarded a badge, a Gold Star badge. Gold Star. And on that day, a name was born. BSA decided to give that name to a motorcycle, and so the Gold Star legend began. After the Second World War, BSA returned to production. At the 1948 Earl Court Show, the new generation Gold Star was unveiled. Aluminum alloy engine, telescopic front fork, a comprehensive options list. You could choose your compression ratio, your gearbox ratios, even your lighting. Every machine came from the factory built specifically for its owner, and every machine went through a dynamometer test before leaving the factory, delivered with documented proof of the horsepower produced. This was an extraordinary thing for that era. By 1956, the Gold Star had reached its peak. The DBD34 model arrived. Bigger valves, RRT2 ultra-close ratio gearbox, swept-back exhaust pipe, a massive 1.5-inch AML carburetor, and performance capable of reaching 110 miles per hour. Gold Stars so dominated the Isle of Man Clubman TT races that the organizers were forced to cancel the event in 1956 because, apart from the Gold Star, There were no other motorcycles left to race. This was not a victory. This was a reign. In 1960s England, a new culture was being born on the streets. Rockers, cafe racers, a generation in leather jackets, clip-on handlebars, living for speed. And this generation's motorcycle was without question one single machine, BSA Gold Star DBD34, Goldie. In those days, the dream of British youth was to hit 100 miles per hour on a Goldie. They called it the ton, 100 miles per hour. And Goldie could make that dream real. It was the same in America. Gold Stars raced on the beach at Daytona, raced on flat tracks, raced in enduros. Legendary tuners like Tom Sifton took a break from Harleys just to work on Gold Stars, because Goldie, in the right hands, could do anything. And now, in one of those hands, it stood right here. Standing in front of this engine now, disassembled, worn down by decades, covered in the quiet of forgotten years, you could still feel what it once was. 499cc, air-cooled, single-cylinder four-stroke engine, overhead valves, aluminum alloy cylinder and head, 40 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, a dry weight of just 173 kilograms, a top speed of 110 miles per hour. On paper, that might seem modest, but those numbers don't tell the story of this engine, because this engine was not just about numbers. Every Gold Star DBD34 was hand-built individually at the factory, and every single one went through a dynamometer test before leaving the factory, delivered with a document certifying the power produced. The owner knew exactly how powerful their machine was. For that era, this was an extraordinary level of trust and transparency. The RRT2 gearbox was one of the most advanced gear systems of its time. Ultra-close ratios, maximum performance in every gear. Even in first gear, you could reach 60 miles per hour. The massive 1.5-inch amol carburetor gave the engine a breathing capacity unmatched at the time. The 190mm front brake was designed to control those speeds. Smith's Instruments, Lucas magneto ignition, Dunlop aluminum rims. Every component, the product of the finest British engineering. A total of 15,000 Gold Stars were produced. Only 5,100 of those were DBD34 models, and every single one is the dream of collectors today. This is not just a motorcycle. This is one of the brightest pages in British motorsport history. The frame went to sandblasting first. Years of rust, paint, and grime, stripped back layer by layer. Work that required patience, work that required care, work that could not be rushed. What emerged underneath was clean, bare metal, bright and honest and true. The frame was perfect, not a single crack, not a single bend, built with the same precision, the same care as the day it left the factory in 1960. The engine was fully disassembled, every single component carefully inspected, cleaned and measured, laid out on the bench, examined under light, every surface checked, every tolerance verified. New gaskets, new seals, new bearings, everything that time had worn away, replaced. The amol carburetor was completely rebuilt, the fuel system restored from tank to engine, the wiring rerouted from scratch. Every cable, every connection, every fuse, all of it new, all of it clean. The bodywork was refinished, that distinctive swept-back exhaust pipe restored to its original brilliance. The Smith's Instruments were restored. The aluminum rims were polished. Day after day, piece by piece, the Gold Star came back. There was nothing to rush here. There was no shortcut worth taking on a machine like this. Every hour spent was an act of respect for what this motorcycle represents. Respect for that Brooklands lap in 1937. Respect for those victories at the Isle of Man. Respect for the generation that created cafe racer culture. This engine was going to breathe again. The moment finally came. We ran through the final checks one last time, verified every line, every connection, made sure everything that needed to be right was right. Then we kicked it. Once, a click. Twice, a shudder. a feeling of something waking up deep inside. 3 times, the engine fired. That sharp, high-pitched, single-cylinder 499cc voice broke decades of silence.
There we are.
The engine
Absolutely
shook,
flawless.
found its rhythm, settled, and held its
Ready for the
idle,
camera?
steady, strong, alive. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. The 1960 BSA Gold Star DBD34 was alive again. Not restored to sit in a museum, not rebuilt to stand behind glass at a show. Restored to exist, to ride, to feel the wind, to feel what Wall Handley felt at Brooklands all over again. Someone had left this machine behind, one of the most iconic machines in British motorsport history, left in a junkyard like it meant nothing, but it meant everything. It still does, because this is not just a motorcycle. This is a story of engineering that stretches from 1937 to 1963, a legend that lived on Isle of Man circuits, on the beach at Daytona, in the hearts of leather-jacketed youth on British streets. Built by hand, by people who believed that ordinary was never enough. We believe that too. Every day, every machine, every quiet hour in the workshop. That is why we do this. For machines like this one, for moments like this one, for the moment an engine that hasn't run in decades fires for the first time. The 1960 BSA Gold Star DBD34. After all these years of silence, it was ready to ride again.